Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining this week's edition of the Recruitment Reality Podcast. It's another global edition, which is awesome. I'm delighted to be joined by two fairly recent partners of Willow from Watermark Retirement Communities. So we've got Debbie and Chris on the call. As I said, it's a relatively new relationship, but I'm really excited to actually explore an industry that we haven't really on the podcast in the past in terms of this kind of healthcare, etc. Side of things, especially in the US and especially with such a great brand and organization that works across lots of different locations, very complex model that they have to kind of deal with from a recruitment perspective, and they do it in such a nice and unstressed way, or at least it feels unstressed whenever we have a conversation. So maybe that's the duck analogy, and under the water everything's stressful, but you guys just keep it calm. But really excited to hear how you do that, how you keep control of the whole process and deliver on what the business needs. Rather than me give an inaccurate or do you a disservice, I guess, Debbie, it would be great if I could hand to you first to give us a quick background of yourself, your background, and also some insights into the business.
Sure. So I have been in senior housing my entire career. It's what I went to college for. And I started my career on the operations side for many, many years as a licensed nursing home administrator and an executive director. I was running a very large community in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when we were bought by a company that was called The Fountains, which was Watermark's original company. And when we sold The Fountains in 2005, I was already in a national role with Watermark. And that really kind of just slowly evolved into becoming the national recruiter. I'm not somebody who has human resources in my background, so I wasn't quite sure how this was going to work. But because I had been with the company for so long at that point, and as an operations specialist, I understood what kind of people, what kind of talent we needed to work in our communities, to provide care for our residents. It just sort of made sense. And the other piece of that, too, is I have a passion for the culture of this organization. So when you're able to speak the culture and understand the business part of our business, it just made sense for me to go into this national role as the national recruiter. I've been with Watermark for 24 years, and we have grown now to we're around 70 communities. We're in about 30 different states in the U.S., and we're growing. So that's a little bit about my background. And lucky for me, about 2 years ago, I was able to bring Chris on board as my partner. And not only is he my partner in crime, but my partner in recruiting. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris for his introduction.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, like Debbie, I didn't choose human resources per se or recruitment. It kind of chose me. And I had luckily a family member who got me into it. And at first it was just agency recruiting for me. I've been in recruitment now probably about 20 years, 15 of which have been in healthcare and senior care, but started in the agency world really as a recruiter, and was recruiting everybody from a warehouse professional to an IT professional and everything in between. So it was a really good experience. And then I think the senior care industry has just had a big challenge with hiring and retention. And so I've found a lot of just a lot of success in the industry because it's a legitimate business need. And more so these days, it's less of me going out trying to find a director of nursing or a sales director. It's more, how do we get staffing agency out of our communities? How do we find the frontline workers? That's the challenge today. It's pretty Debbie, you'd say that it's not super challenging to find an ED or a sales director or leadership folks. But anyway, been my role as of recent with Watermark is going into these, or not going physically, but putting a plan together for these communities to get their staffing agency out of there so we can get our own Watermark associates in there and get more control over the community.
You rounded up the point of obviously getting staffing agencies out, and I think it's just like it's so prevalent. The level of competition. It used to be like desperately trying to find the highly skilled executives, like the sort of headhunting search was like the hardest part of everybody's job, finding the top level
Yeah.
talent. And now it seems to have just completely shifted to how do we find hourly workers at a rate that is, reasonable and palatable for the organisation, but also gets the right skills in, and it just seems like a huge challenge. What proportion of hires that you have to make are those kind of frontline hourly workers versus the sort of permanent, permanent roles?
Gosh, last year it was more executive, more leadership focused, and I feel like starting this year it's been way more focused on agency removal and getting communities stable with frontline workers. I'd say 90% of what I did in
I would agree.
2022 was leadership recruiting, and it's
Really?
interesting
Wow.
how the business needs now are more like changing. So Debbie and I are always kind of chasing after what the business really needs. The frontline worker recruiting isn't the most fun part
Yeah.
of it. That's for sure. But it's what the business needs,
And I think that really is a byproduct, Woody, of the pandemic. I think during the pandemic, we had to do anything we could do to get staff in the communities. And we had people who were out sick with COVID. We had people who said, I can't do this, I'm done.
Mm,
And we had people exiting in masses across the country, and understandably so. And I
mm,
think that the communities got very comfortable relying on agency.
mm,
And once we started to see the dust clear a little bit and the world getting back to normal, uh, at that point, I think the communities got so used to, oh, I need a 3 to 11 caregiver, I need a 7 to 3 housekeeper. I'm going to call the agency. I'm going to call the agency because it became that normal to do.
yeah.
So we're now um, somewhere in the ballpark of spending about $18 million a year on
Wow.
agency. And Chris and myself and the other gentleman who works on our team, we spend a lot of time working with the communities to get agency out of their buildings.
Yeah.
And the labor market has improved tremendously, which is wonderful. People
Mm,
are out there. Now we've got to remind the communities how to go after them and how to get them. And it's not just recruiting, it's not just reading resumes, calling people in, watching their interviews. It's not just that. It's more about if you don't have the right culture in your community,
mm-hmm,
you can hire 100 people, 99 of them will leave it within the first 90 days.
mm, mm,
So it's more than us helping get the people in. It's working and coaching and mentoring the communities on how to keep the people there.
yeah.
So it's very complicated actually when you think
Yeah.
about it. It shouldn't be, but it is very complicated. And our frontline workers are they're the backbone. They are the reason we're successful. They're the reason our residents get good care. They are the hands-on with our residents, working with their coworkers every single day.
Mm.
And so we have to make that investment in them. An executive director doesn't need that same type of recognition, if you will, or a director of nursing or a sales director, but our frontline folks who are in it. And again, I
Mm.
go back to, the time during the pandemic when I saw these true heroes running to the fire instead of away from it. And I think we do a very good job at Watermark, but it's something that always could be improved on really recognizing and appreciating the people who are the hands-on in it
Mm.
every day.
It's the engine room, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting dynamic because when you talk about like staffing agency, if you're an executive director of a community, this is a hypothesis, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But retention is less important if you're using a staffing agency because actually that person is filling a need that's immediate, and you're kind of expecting them to come and go as they
Right.
please because you can just get the next person. Whereas moving away from that model to let's get some loyal hourly workers for a extended period of time. Like you say, if you have that bad culture or whatever it may be that's driving the attrition, they are 99 out of 100 of them are going to leave, and then it becomes very, very difficult to sustain the level of staff that you actually need, right?
Correct.
So I bet that's a huge mindset shift for a lot of these executive directors who have a very high pressure job of running the community, and recruitment is just one of those things that, as we know, like it's on the list. It's probably one of the most important things on the list, but there's also 100 other really important things that they have to do. I'm really intrigued to know, in such 70 communities across 30 different states, how do you cope with like that disparity between the different communities and communicating different initiatives and really like understanding what each of those community needs when they're at such a geographical sort of disadvantage, being so far away from each other?
Well, we're very fortunate because David Barnes, who is the owner and president of Watermark, is such a passionate culture guy. I think, and I tell people this all the time. If you ask David, would you rather own the company or be the chief culture officer? Chief culture officer, hands down. That would be his answer. So here you have somebody at the very top who culture means everything to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he has put great systems and programs in place to try to make sure that culture, Watermark's culture, is spread across the country, across the communities. Now, that being said, I will tell you that there are things that are definitely watermarks that live, eat, sleep, and breathe in every community. But then, just because humans are humans, each community does have its own personality.
Yeah.
And, the personality of our community in Beverly Hills is a very different personality than our community in Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
So we always like to say, if you've seen one Watermark community, you've seen one.
Yeah.
So we give them the tools to have the foundation of a great culture, and then they bring their own spin to it. They bring their own, whether it's something that is based on where they are physically located or the diversity in a particular community. No matter what that is, they bring that into the foundation that David has built as a solid culture for
Mm.
Watermark. And I hear this all the time because I interview executive director level people, regional people, national people all the time. And the number one reason that they are looking for a new opportunity or a new job is they said they had this great culture and I couldn't find it anywhere. So that always says to me why the culture is so important. And getting it, we can't put square pegs into round holes. So we can't expect every community to be cookie cutter, the same. They all act the same, dress the same, look the same. It's not going to happen. But we give them the tools they need to have that foundation, and then they bring in their own personalities. And when a community is able to do that, it's going to be one of our most successful communities.
Well, I
Our
guess you can't. Sorry, Debbie. I was just going to
no, no,
say you kind of have to, because Beverly Hills versus New York.
yeah,
The culture of those communities, not your communities, but the
yep,
communities, the areas, is so
correct,
different. So if you had exactly the same experience, the residents, who are ultimately the customers, right? They're the ones that you want to keep happy.
correct,
They would have a bad experience if the Beverly Hills culture was the New York culture, right? So
right,
that's the diversity, and that's what you need. But that doesn't mean you can't all believe in the same thing in a different way.
correct. And
We
and
task a lot of our HR folks with the recruitment and retention at each community, and each community has their own HR person. A lot of times, that person is also doing business office related responsibilities as well. And yeah, if you've got an HR person who doesn't really isn't sales minded, right? Not picking up the phone and you know and making that real initiative to recruit, it can be challenging, and it can unravel real quick, um, if there's not that
The
always
drive,
occasionally hiring mentality. Um,
yeah,
but
yeah,
well, they do well. But you saw it, Woody, with Willow. I mean, some of our HR folks just wrapped their arms around it, and then some of them were a little freaked out, you know,
yeah.
in the
Well, I
beginning.
think that it's kind of natural. It's a very, very different thing for a lot of people. Still, 80% of candidates that complete a Willow, it's their first time doing something like it. And for a lot of HR folks, it's exactly the same, right? It's still their first time, and what you need is the ones that wrap their arms around it to have quick success and start sharing that around, and then that's how you create change and momentum for sure. And I think the thing about the cultural side of it is like how people can use it's giving them frameworks, but then how are they going to use it differently in their different cultures, of their communities, and how does that all link together? I'm really keen to just sort of bottom out this kind of culture, employer brand conversation about like how, in terms of attracting candidates, how do you go about getting this amazing message actually out to prospective candidates?
well, one of the things we've done, our ads are not the typical ads that you see with other companies. We really put a really solid paragraph. So it's the first thing a candidate will read that talks about Watermark, talks about the kind of company we are, and why you would want to work for Watermark. We more focus on what we will give to you, what you will get out of this versus what we need. And
Mm,
we really do try to make it about the candidate versus us. And that approach, I think, has worked well for us over the years. We talk in our ads about what you can expect from us. Here's
hmm
our benefits. Here's what you will gain. Here's what your opportunities for future growth will be. And I think that right there makes us a little bit different
hmm
in our approach. And I think also, and Chris spends a lot of time working with frontline workers and getting them to want to come in. I think for us, it's telling our story. It's all about storytelling if you think about it. And it's all about. I always use the analogy, and I just love this. If you submit your resume and it's not truthful, eventually we will find out
Find
that it's
out.
not
Yeah.
truthful. And so we kind of approach it like, if you did online dating and you posted a picture of yourself from 20 years ago, eventually you're going to meet the person and they're going to see that's not what you look like in your picture.
Yeah.
And it's, we approach this the same way is, um, you know, if you don't have experience, that's okay. We'll look at your background, and if you're willing to put in a hard day's work as a server, we'll teach you how to be a server. So,
Yeah.
so we try to really approach it as a very, we are a very associate centric organization, and I think that's our draw. That's how we pull in the candidates. And that's
Mm.
why they might be attracted to working at a Watermark community versus any of our competition. So I think it's all in our approach and our first impression, what their first impression is of us, and
Yeah.
that is what they read in our ad.
Absolutely. And Chris, as you know, as the person that's probably dealing with frontline workers the most, what is it that you think? What's the feedback that you hear from them about what they want to see, what they want to hear? The kind of process that they go through on the day to day. What are you kind of hearing from candidates at the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. So in the States, we have our unemployment is the lowest it's been since the early 60s. I mean, it's just everybody here is working. So that's kind of the trick. As an employer, how do we um, uh, present something a little bit better than our competition to pull folks from where they are? And I'm finding that people really like the flex scheduling piece. That's
Mm.
one thing that we haven't quite gotten to yet. We've talked about it, but there are organizations that we work with, like Care and Telecare, and folks like that who can provide these. Uh, if somebody calls out last minute from a shift, they have an app. Apparently, you can go in and just kind of book a caregiver for a day, kind of a thing. It's a staffing
Mm.
agency with a twist. um, and so that tends to work well, but a lot of flex scheduling is a big deal. Um, you know, pay rates. A lot of folks just really want also to, at least the people that we want are looking for, have that passion. That they want to be
Mm.
in this industry. That if we start hearing, what shift available, what shift options do you have? How far is the commute? What does it pay? That kind of stuff. Typically, we shy away from those folks. But if we hear somebody say, I really want this job because I really want to care for people, or I really want to, my grandma recently passed away and was in a community, and this kind of speaks to me. Those are the type of people that we like to go after. But if folks are
Mm.
fixated on the commute distance or the shift, or
How many days
typically it
off?
doesn't work.
and
Yeah.
and that's what we love. uh, when people now do their Willow interview, our first question is, tell us a little bit about yourself as it relates to this job.
Yeah.
And what the candidates that we are so drawn to are the ones who passionately speak about caring for residents,
Mm.
and what drives them to want to do that. And I think that just tells us so much about a candidate
Mm.
when we hear that. I know for me, if I'm even at the level that I interview for, if within the first sentence or two, the questions are, what's the salary, and what are the hours, and how much vacation
Yeah.
time do you get a year, and how long till I could take a vacation? For me, right or wrong, game over.
Yeah. No, I'm afraid I'm exactly the same. Even to the point, if it, maybe this is too far, but if you're a salesperson, for example, and you're asking about the hours, to me, it's like, what hours? Because you're getting paid an unlimited commission. So it's up to you. You could work no hours. And if you're the most efficient salesperson on the planet, amazing, great job. I'll pay you exactly the same. You could work all the hours that you possibly could and you could still be the most efficient person, but you could earn 3 times as much. And it is that kind of passion, etc., that you're looking for. I guess the challenge is in a talent short market, sometimes you just don't have that option, right? You don't have the option of the person that's super passionate. You've just got to fill the role, and you've got to find the worker. What do you do in that instance? Like, do you find, because of the talent shortage, sometimes you have to kind of compromise on the values side of things just to make sure that the community keeps running?
Well, I think for management level folks, we really try very hard to not come from scarcity. And as we're recruiting for a sales director, an executive director, fortunately for us, we have regional and national resources that can kind of hold those forts down while we are doing our search. Recently I had a sales director candidate say to me, I don't work weekends. If I need to leave at 5 o'clock, I need to leave at 5 o'clock. Oh, and my base salary is $250,000 a year. I said, I would like that gig too.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't blame you.
Sounds great. Where do I apply?
Right. So but I know I don't have to jump on that candidate because I know I have regional salespeople who will, and we have a call center and we have a national salesperson. So I know I don't have to hire that person because I don't have any other candidates at that moment. So that's really helpful. When it comes to the line staff, the frontline workers, I think that I would rather take the person with little or no experience who can passionately speak to us about why they want that job. If it's a non-licensed position, obviously, and coach them and mentor them and train them because, we say hire for heart and train for skills.
Yeah.
I rather that person than the person who is already, before they've even gotten an offer letter, asking for time off, higher rates, and specific hours, and it's staying in the driver's seat. I think is what it is, Woody. We as the employers, we have to stay in the driver's seat. We have to be able to say, while we appreciate everything you want, and that's great and good for you, we're going to pass. And we have to be brave enough to say that and bold enough to say that.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to Chris's point about having people, the HR managers in the communities that are of a mindset, always be recruiting, not vacancy, got to fill it. And that's where the agency fees creep in, right? Is if you forget to be proactive.
Correct.
You're suddenly working to catch up, as opposed to if you're proactive and you can see what's coming and you predict all of that kind of stuff. So really good insight. I'd like to just touch on technology because obviously, so you use Simpler as your ATS. Obviously, you've just partnered with Willow. How important is technology, and again, in this sort of disparate world of community senior care that you work in across so many different regions, areas, etc. How important is the technology to help a very small team of 3 people actually do quite a lot of stuff for 70 different communities? I guess, Chris, I'd ask you that question first, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, it's huge, and it should be huge for any organization today with the way the labor market is. We rely on it heavily every day. Gosh, you rewind just 10 years ago, it was way different. It was a lot of paper applications and whatever else, but in our industry at least. But in today's world, yeah, you've got to leverage that. In fact, we're now looking to integrate our ATS and payroll system together. That's going to alleviate a huge burden off of our HR
Yeah.
folks in terms of data entry and manual stuff. So that's huge. And luckily we've got senior leadership who Debbie, if we ask for something, they'll give it to us right now. I mean,
Yeah.
they're very involved in recruiting, want to see genuinely the organization rebound from this agency thing, and whatever we bring to them, they've been willing to talk about. And yeah, the Willow has been a game changer for us. Our applicant tracking system, when we post a job, it shotguns those postings out to probably 14 different job boards and job aggregators, so we get good coverage there. We use LinkedIn heavily, social media heavily. We just try to cast a wide net from a technology standpoint too. Yeah.
And what's been your, like, when you're looking at technologies that you want to implement and bring together, what's been the main objective? For some
Ease of
people,
use.
it's okay, cool.
Ease of use. Our folks are
Yeah.
so busy and recruit, like you said, Woody, like recruiting. Yeah, it should be top priority, but it's already not a very fun thing to do. Recruiting, who wants to set up 10 interviews and have 3 people show up? So if the easier we can make it from a technology standpoint, the better. The ADPs of the world, these big Taleo ATS systems and things, like, I don't know. To me, it's just recruiting. It's a
Too many
simple
bells
thing.
and whistles.
Yeah, it should be really simple. It should be really easy. And, it should be as few clicks as possible to get what you want.
Yeah, I totally agree, and obviously that's our philosophy. And it's that, to me, that one of the kind of main objectives is to again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from our conversations, it's to have a very simple way of automating the process that keeps the human element in, basically. So, like, how can we give these people more relevant information quicker and easier
Right.
without losing, and in fact enhancing, like, the level of human interaction that they get, and seeing beyond, seeing the heart, and then training for the skills, basically. So is that a part of your entire technology, like, strategy at the moment? Just try and automate something simply that just enables people to select people quicker, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you remember one of our very first conversations, when we told you we were selecting Willow, you said to me, "Why did you choose us over the other companies you looked at?" And my response to you was ease of use.
Yeah.
And that aligned with everything we tried to do. I think for us to having the technology gives us, myself, Chris, David, it gives us the ability to look at how the communities are doing, having the data and the reporting available to us. If we get a call and they say, "Hey, we're desperate, we can't hire anybody," we're able to go in, look at their account, see if we can think of anything that they're not doing that we can put into place. And it the technology helps us be better. It helps Chris and myself be better resources to the community. So technology is huge. And when we get the opportunity to add a program like a Willow, um, it just shows that we are standing side by side with you. We are not expecting you to do it all, and we're here to support and help. And I think that's the message that goes out there when we bring in tools that are easy to use but have tremendous benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does really help identify problems a lot of times. Debbie will somebody will be waving the white flag saying, we're dying. We have 10 openings, and we go in, and there's 40 caregivers that have been sitting in there since January and haven't been reviewed yet. It's like, it's tough sometimes there, but the technology allows us to see that quickly and then and address it.
Help out. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing about the focus on simplicity across all that you use. I mean, the ATS is called simpler, so you would assume it's quite simple, or at least simpler than others. That should be their tagline. The reality is, like, if you integrate technology that is like a report, like all about reporting and data and calling people out, that's received really badly. Whereas if
Correct.
you can integrate technology that is simple to use and they can see the value in it, and you're genuinely being additive to the process, right? As opposed to, just holding people accountable. It's not just about saying you're not doing well enough. It's not just about, giving them technology to put a band-aid over things. It's actually going, okay, what can we do better for these people that have really tough jobs already, and then have to recruit
Correct.
on top of it.
Correct.
Oh yeah, you kind of got to help them a little bit. And one of the things we did was we set up automated reports that go out once a week from our applicant tracking system that give our HR folks and administrators like a pipeline report, basically how many candidates we've received, how many have been reviewed, how many have been interviewed, how many have been hired. So every week they get a little snapshot of what's going on. Now, whether they open those emails or not, I'm not sure, but they're getting that data.
Yeah, and they can action it.
Hmm.
Exactly. And when we have communities that reach out to us and we know we're going to spend some time telling them what they haven't done or what they could be doing different, the two things we really stress is this is not a right wrong conversation,
Mm,
and we don't look at it as what you haven't done, but here's your opportunities. And if we can get and keep people off of the defensive,
mm.
it's a much more productive time.
Absolutely, and that again, I think with technology and what you guys have done well from what I've seen is try to find that super user, try to find that person that's really going to embrace the technology and is just going to be the one that's at the next all hands meeting, is walking around going, oh yeah, I had 5 people through. Just looking at that reporting email every Friday, I noticed that we weren't moving people through the pipeline quick enough, or whatever it may be, and becoming that champion. So it's really interesting to kind of hear your philosophy on the technology side of things. It's been awesome to chat. I've got one more question before I let you go, because we're kind of out of time. It is, if you had to give one bit of advice to either, and this is for both of you, so whoever wants to go first can go first. If you could give one bit of advice either to a candidate or to somebody in a similar, sort of situation, maybe not in senior care, but in an organisation that has like a really distributed sort of community, maybe franchises, etc., that kind of stuff, and has a problem with hourly workers, what advice would you give to them? Who wants to go first? Debbie,
I'll
that
go
was a
first. My advice to our folks who are recruiting, I always tell people read a resume from the bottom up, because usually at the bottom is where you get sort of the real
hobbies.
nugget. Yeah, you see, were they captain of a collegiate team? Do they volunteer their time for Habitat for Humanity? By the time you get up to their job history, you kind of have now gotten a sense of who the person is, and are they somebody that could be part of your team? And then you get into their job history and determine,
Mm.
between what you now know about them and their background and what they've done for work in the past, does this fit well with you? And I always, that to me just is something I've always done. It's a habit I have. And
I
then
love
my
that.
advice,
It's so
yeah,
simple.
it's so
Such a
simple, right?
simple
And my
change in perspective.
and my advice to candidates is there's no wrong answer. Be yourself, be honest. Don't be somebody you're not just to try to get the job. We're looking at you as a person, not necessarily. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Tell us what you want us to hear. And that would be my advice for candidates.
Yeah, great. And then you'll end up in the right place in the end,
Absolutely.
wherever that may be.
Correct.
Thanks, Debbie. Love that advice. Chris, anything to add?
Sure, I'd say for hiring managers, really in any industry, if you're hiring today, you really just have to look at things through a lens of optimism. I mean, so many times we talk to these hiring managers and they're wrapped around the axle about, oh, it's the labor market, oh, it's our pay rates, oh, it's this, it's just an excuse hurricane. And I think if you can just kind of change the story in your mind and say, no, this is actually the best labor market we've ever been in. It's just going to take a little bit more work. And that's the key in recruitment, is just the effort. You got to put the effort in, and there's always somebody out there, there's always somebody that's interested in Watermark in every market. And don't tell me there's not, you know, it's just a matter of finding them. So I'd just say for hiring managers, just try and combat that conversation in your mind that, you can't get it done because the labor
Yeah.
market's weird. Well, we're doing it, and we're doing it in weird markets. It just takes a little bit more work.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, great advice. And I think there's so much, press around like talent shortages and all of that stuff. But I think ultimately, if you come back to the point that you made, Debbie, and you hire for heart and train for skill, the pool of applicants just explodes. It becomes exponentially larger if you broaden your horizons for what good actually looks like, and have a more diverse pool of candidates. So really great advice, Chris. Thank you both so much for coming
Thank you,
on.
Woody.
It's been awesome. If people want to get in touch with Watermark or yourselves individually or whatever, what's the best way for people to apply for jobs or just get in touch?
The best way to apply for a job is all our jobs show up on Indeed.com. All our jobs also show up, and you could put in your location but on our website on our career tabs, which is watermarkcommunities.com. And you'll be able to see everything all across the country if you go to one of those two places.
Perfect. Good stuff. And look, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to deconstruct what you're doing. And, I just have, since our first call, always loved the culture first approach that you have as a business. And, despite, like I said, it being a very stressful kind of world to live in and can be very chaotic, you bring those communities together in a really unstressful way, which is amazing to see. So anybody that needs advice or needs to think about, I'm pulling my hair out every day, needs to listen to this podcast. Thank you, everybody that's tuned in. I really appreciate you spending the time to listen to our podcast or watch it, wherever you are. Wherever you are, please don't forget to subscribe. As always, I'm starting to remember that. This is the third podcast in a row I've remembered to say, don't forget to subscribe. So I'll be getting a gold star from myself at the end of this. But thanks so much, and everybody have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
Woody.
you, Woody.
You have a good day too.